Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, here to talk some UFC. Joining me today, I have my usual two favorite men. I have Devin Manyun, SBR's UFC expert, and MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. Before we get into all the good, juicy stuff, like always, just give this video a like and subscribe to our channel. Now, let's just jump into it. Before we get into this upcoming weekend, like always, I'm going to get into the recap of our previous weekend, all right? So this previous weekend we have Deiveson Figueiredo versus Alex Perez, okay, for UFC 255. I think that was a great fight. But Dave, I'm going to start off with you. If you can give us your recap of your weekend.
Yeah, do you know what? I was highly disappointed. I had Daniel Rodriguez in a bet before we even touched the main card, and I feel like they handed it to Nicholas Dolby a bit flippantly, and I just don't believe he should have got the nod there. But in terms of, an overall card, it was pretty damn good. We didn't see the judges all that much. Antonina Shevchenko, she shocked me with the round 2, wasn't it? She got the knockout. Yeah. And then obviously Buckley came back with another earth-shattering knockout. Not quite as good as the last one, but boy, Jordan Wright looked like he received a nice dose of whiplash from that hook. And then there was Brandon Moreno with his knockout. And the happiest result for me really was Paul Craig. A lot of people were backing Shogun in this one. I saw a lot of people just saying, Craig's a bum, he's washed. But as I said last week, we were focusing on, Mauricio and where he currently is in his career. And he wasn't going to win that fight, in my opinion, and he didn't. But then the main events, Shevchenko did what we all expected her to do. I mean, there was moments where she got out-grappled, which I did say last week. If we're going to, push for Jennifer Maia to do anything, it would probably be with the grappling. But it just wasn't good enough. And then the main event, the very last, I think the last sentence I said on this show last week was, beware of the guillotine. And look what happened. Figueiredo squeezes like hell. But I'm telling you, he squeezes up, and he does this a lot, and he puts all of his effort into them guillotines, and I've watched it fade him in the past. So I was praying it was there, and it was round 1 submission. Overall, I was an entertaining card. I loved it. Profited again. Positive on my picks, and we're back again for another week of action.
Yep. Now, shout out to Mauricio Rua. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday, Shogun. Now, how about you, Matt? How did your weekend go?
Well, first and foremost, Joaquin Buckley's nickname should be Tryptophan now because he knocked him out faster than me after my 4th helping of stuffing on Thursday. But when it comes to that card, it pretty much was a straight cash homie card in regards to how we discussed it last week. Deiveson Figueiredo showing up and showing out. Valentina Shevchenko. That was an interesting fight to me just because of how much time was spent on the ground. There were some fights on this card that really surprised me. As Dave said, we really didn't see the judges all that much. The UFC pay-per-view cards are very sneaky because when you look at them from a pure fan perspective and you don't see big names up top, you feel like, is it worth the $60? But us not real fight fans, but us diehard fight fans know that there's going to be those diamond in the rough fights, and we saw them a lot. That Mike Perry fight was very interesting. I really don't know what to make of Mike Perry anymore. Obviously, his outside of the cage issues are very prevalent, but how he came into this fight, his very laissez-faire attitude, I guess Dana sees some star power in him, but it is going to get into a very dangerous situation, I think, in regards to how he treats each fight in 2021. It's going to be a very interesting and very cautionary tale, I think, for Mike Perry.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. But let's just move on to this next weekend because I think we have a pretty interesting card. Not very exciting, but it's an interesting card. On Saturday, November 28th, we have UFC Fight Night, Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis, all right? But let's just jump into our main card breakdown. We're going to start off with Featherweight Spike Carlyle versus Bill Algeo. Via Bet Online, Spark Carlyle is -175 and Bill Algeo is +150. Matt, I'm going to start with you today. If you can give us your breakdown and pick for that fight.
Well, first of all, I'm very thankful you let me go first. But both of these fighters are coming off of losses. Spike Carlyle coming off a loss to Billy Quarantillo, and Algeo, however you pronounce it, I'm terrible, is coming off a loss to Ricardo Lamas. But walking into their last fight, very different situations. For Algeo, he's 1-2 in his last 3, including a fight against Brendan Loughnane on the Contender Series, while Carlyle had a 5-fight win streak in that run that included 3 TKOs or knockouts, a submission, and a decision win. And also, this is Carlyle's 3rd UFC fight. He is still very young, and he's got a 9-2 record, and 9-2 can mean you've been MMA for 10 years and taken a fight a year, or you've just been fighting for 3 years and you're just getting them all in at once. So records, as we get further into the evolution of MMA, are a little trickier than they seem. But only 3 of his pro fights have gone to the scorecards, and that's the stat of the fight for me, is that the deeper this fight goes, the more advantageous it will be for Algeo. Alego's the more veteran fighter. All 3 fights in his 1-2 run have went the distance, so he's able to keep up the stamina, even though he's dropped 2 of those fights. And that's the same record that Carlyle has when going to a decision, is 1-2. I'm going to go with the favorite Carlyle in this one, but this is kind of a hands-off fight for me because there's a lot of external stimuli that are juking the stats for me. If this was a straight up in a vacuum, it's Carlyle 9 times out of 10. But I would be a little unsure to put money straight up on this.
All right. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you agree with Matt? Do you have a different take for this fight?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Matt broke that down perfect. The problem with the Alpha Ginger here is he does finish a lot of his fights, and across 15 minutes, I'm not sure that Spike Carlyle can out-cardio Bill Algeo, should we say, because we saw it in the Billy Quarantillo fight, which, some argued that Spike could have took that decision. I don't think so. I think Billy, slightly got that one, and I was backing Spike as well. I've backed Spike since his debut against, what's his name? Elon Cruz. But this is tough. This is tough just for the reasons that Matt mentioned. I think Spike's the better fighter, and 9 times out of 10, if this is a war, then Spike's gonna come out on top. But in a professional MMA bout across 15 minutes, if he doesn't get that finish, I do worry for him later in the rounds. And you know what? If the odds were a little closer to plus money, to even money, I probably would be tempted in a bet. But right now it's sitting at minus 170. It opened up at 150, so it's heading in the right direction that we're saying. We've already lost 20 points of value, so, it's tough. Both men, realistically, they're untested in the UFC. And with Spike's cardio fading in the previous fight, that's just a setback that I'm probably not going to want to combine with these odds. And it's a pass for me, but I do lean Spike Carlyle in getting the nod. I think he's got a great chance of finishing this one, obviously. His style kind of reminds me of like a wrestler striker like your Chad Mendes and your Frankie Edgar. He trains with Benny Al-Dariush up at King's MMA. So he's got the team, he's got the skills. He's only 27 and is still growing as a fighter. I think, in the long run, Spike Carlyle will go further than Bill Algeo in the UFC. But in terms of betting and risking your money for this fight, I'd be a little hesitant.
All right. Well, if you guys do want to get in on that fight again via BetOnline, Spike Carlyle is minus 175 and Bill Algeo is plus 150. Let's move on to the next fight. We have welterweight Miguel Bazer versus Takashi Sato. Via BetOnline, Beza is minus 160 and Sato is plus 140. Dave, I'm going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for that fight.
Yes, see, this is another tough one. And look, you look at the card as a whole. We go from the early prelims to the main card. Just take a peek at the odds. They're all very close, and they're very close for a good reason, because a lot of these matchups on the card, I feel like they've just fell into place. The matchmaking is very good, and it's a hard to predict card. I'm actually quite nervous for this one this week, but we've got Miguel Bazer. There's a Dana White Contender Series alumni. He's had 2 fights in the UFC and 2 knockouts. Only 9 professional fights, but the skill level is there. He's still young. He's still learning. And then he's had the 2 fights he had went to the judges. and he took on Victor Reina late notice. But Victor Reina came in 7 pounds and overweight, and that was the only fight where he didn't get the KO. So we'll forgive Baeza in that one, but there is something we should take note from Baeza, and that's his willingness to stand and bang and leave his chin out there. That is going to go against him, against a guy like Takashi Sato. So I really hope that Baezer's going to pull out that black belt in this one. Now, through his 9 professional fights, he hasn't got any submissions, but he's a BJJ black belt and he's good on the ground. And if we look at Takashi Sato, where he's failed in the past, it's grappling. He has got a judo black belt, but when it comes to wrestling and ground control, he hasn't been too good. Sato is the more experienced of the two. He's got 19 professional fights. Different style of striking. Sato's got like a wide karate stance, good footwork. He keeps his distance, and he's got that, that one pop, you're gonna flop KO style. Like if you get hit, you're gonna drop. No significant wins for Sato. Ben Saunders and Jason Witt, they're not the greatest trophies to be coming into this match boasting about. But the striking presence is evident. It's there. But we go and look at the Belal Muhammad scrap, okay? Takashi Sato versus Belal Muhammad, and the weak points were there, as I mentioned. He was easily taken down, easily controlled on the ground. If Baeza plays this smart, I believe, because he has a wider skill set here, he can get this done. He doesn't want to be headhunting. But, whilst I'm telling myself this, when you look at this fight on the outside, it's a knockout artist versus knockout artist. Both these guys come and drop bombs. I just feel that Takashi Sato is the more technical striker, and if Baeza decides to get in that round with him, I feel like he could lose. So I'm leaning Baeza to be the smart guy and maybe utilize some grappling in this, and get the nod, whether that be the judges or a submission finish. Sato is very low volume on their feet. I do have to say, in the fights, even through fights he's won, he's always looking for that kill shot because he has that killer power in that hand, in that right hand. So for me, right now I'm leaning Baeza, but it's just another one of them fights where the odds, the odds are getting better now. If it comes down another 20 points, I'll take it. Baeza opened at -180, is currently sitting at -150. If I can get -120 on Baeza, I'll probably be tempted to have a little play on him. But as of now, it's just hard when you've got two knockout artists going against each other. It's just a tough one because either one could drop. And when you look at Baeza's fight tape, he leaves that chin out there, and that worries me. So for that reason, I'm probably going to stay off this fight. However, I do lean Baeza, the favourite, to take the W.
All right. Well, how about you, Matt? What's your take on this fight?
Much like Nicki Minaj, Miguel Baeza bees in the trap. He bees in the trap. This is a trap fight for Miguel Baeza. He's 9-0. This is his 3rd fight in the UFC since joining last year. Both of his wins have been by 2nd round TKO in the UFC, and all but 2 of his wins have come inside the distance. He's never finished a fight in the 3rd round. We talked about Spike Carlyle's cardio in our last fight. We got to talk about it here too. And this is a trap fight. This is a serious trap fight for Baeza. All the things that Dave brought up on the positive and the negative for Baeza is the same for Takashi Sato. Sato's 3-1 in his last 4. Which are all 3 of his UFC fights. He's 2-1 inside that octagon-shaped structure that I don't want to get sued for saying. His last loss was to Belal Muhammad at UFC 242. Not a slouch loss, not an easy win, not an easy loss by any means. His last win was a TK over Jason Witt back in June. Dave called him a knockout artist, and he is. 11 of his 16 wins have been by KO or TKO. He submitted opponents, and he's gotten 3 wins by decision. This is a stay-away fight for me. Baeza could pull off the win, but I feel this is a serious trap fight, and I'm leaning towards Sato.
All right. Well, if you guys do want to get in on that fight again, via BetOnline, Miguel Baeza is -160, and Takashi Sato is +140. Let's move on to the next fight. Heavyweight, Josh Parrison versus Parker Porter. Via BetOnline, Parisian is -215, and Porter is +180. Matt, I'm going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for that fight.
Oh, this card just keeps getting weirder and weirder. We've got a heavyweight debut on the main card. So Josh Parisian coming in at 13-3. Last seen knocking out Chad Johnson. No, not Chad Ochocinco, another Chad Johnson. There should be like a SAG rule in sports. I know I'd be affected because my name's Matt Ryan and I share the name with like 87 other people, including Constantine and the guy who sucks on the Falcons. He doesn't suck. I'm just saying that because I'm jealous. He's not seen a fight go to decision in 3 years. He's on a 6-fight winning streak where all of his wins were by knockout or TKO. His last loss came in Lights Out MMA, which is an MMA promotion owned by San Diego Chargers great Sean Merriman. That's right. Anybody can own an MMA promotion now in California. It's all fakakta out there. That came in a 2-fight losing streak. That capped a 2-fight winning streak. A losing streak, pardon me, where he was submitted and KO'd. He's only seen the second round twice in the past 2 years, and when he's gone past the second round, he's been an even split 1-1. Parker Porter knocked out Chris Daukaus at UFC 252, which was his UFC debut. Oh, sorry, he was knocked out by Chris Daukaus at UFC 252. Can't read my own notes today. But he's 3-2 in his last 5, being stopped and DQ'd while winning by TKO and submission. So both of these guys are going to be looking for a finish here. I don't expect this fight ending in the 3rd round. I don't see this going to the 3rd round. And in terms of levels of competition, Porter, in a past life, fought Gabriel Gonzaga, former UFC fighter. So he has experience, but there's also levels of inconsistency. Porter's taken breaks in 2013 and 2015, which saw him out of the sport for 3 years. So if you're looking at this fight, I would go with Parisian in a parlay. Like, for me, this fight is not going to a decision. If you're going to bet on anything, I'd bet on the under. And I would probably look at Parisian getting a stoppage win here.
Okay, interesting. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you agree with Matt? Do you have a different take for that fight?
No, I agree. I'm on Parisian on this one. I am 2-time Dana White Contender Series knockout winner. He didn't get the contract the first time round. I think it was like a 2-year gap. 2018 was his first attempt. I think Dana ignored that knockout, didn't care for him. Don't know why. I believe it was a spinning knockout as well. I swear it was a spinning back fist. But he returned back to the Apex in August, and he pieced up an athletic Chad Johnson. Now, I will say, Chad Johnson is not a natural heavyweight. So, and I think the Parisian was 50 pounds heavier. But with that said, he's 6'4" and he is nimble for 6'4". He moves like a middleweight. He flies around the octagon, and you look at both of these fighters, actually, Parker Porter and Parisian, and you just think, what burger joint have they just rolled out of? But when you look at them in the octagon, don't judge a book by its cover, because they're both technical fighters. The technical striking of Porter, he was no slouch in that loss that he took, in that knockout loss. And to be honest, he didn't look like he was, losing the fight too tough. He just got caught by Daukaus. Daukaus pieced him up, and the combo at the end was so vicious. In fact, that's another fighter I want to see, Daukaus again, because that was a vicious finish. And Porter, I'm not going to look at Porter's fight tape and say he was horrible, because he wasn't. Not at all. But he's going to be fighting a guy now who's going to have a 4-inch in height advantage, and I just think the speed is going to be the difference. This one, as I mentioned, Parisian's got an array of strikes and moves: spinning kicks, low kicks, front kicks, side kicks. The footwork, great. As I say, throw in a spin attack or two. Inside the clinch, he had his back against the cage versus Chad Johnson, and he threw a cheeky knee that somehow reached the chin from the clinch. And then and just mauled him until the ref jumped in. I can't envision now a slow Parker Porter causing Parisian too many issues, to be fair, unless he's going to catch him with a strike, a knockout strike. Then I think this one is Parisian's. Now, as mentioned, Parker, he wasn't awful. He's got legs like tree trunks, and for such a large dude, he's not bad on his feet. So I don't want to cuss him out too much. I just think he's going to be a step slower than Parisian in this one. And returning so soon after a vicious stoppage is always a bad idea. What was it? August, Porter fought in? Was it August? I think it was August. So what we're saying, like, between 8 to 12 weeks in return. And I don't support them type of moves there. The juice, yeah, that's the problem in this fight. The juice right now. As Matt mentioned, if you really want to play this fight, the under is probably the best bet. It's not going 15 minutes. I can tell you that now. And it might not even go 10 minutes. So, look at the under 1.5, the under 2.5. I do think Parisian's going to win. I do think he's the better fighter. But given that both men are just still, a bit untested, and they are heavyweights, it's a risk. I think Parisian's got the better team behind him, the Scorpion, whatever they're called, Team SFS, Scorpion Fight System, or it is, Chiesa, Michael Chiesa and them boys. He's got the better team. He's the bigger guy, faster. And, I'm just going to side with Parisian. I'm not going to be betting him, though. And if you want to bet, it's the under, I think. Fight not to go the distance, under 1.5 or under 2.5.
So on Bet Online, we have the under 1.5 is minus 145.
There you go. See, there's some value there. There is some value.
Yep. But again, if you guys do want to get in on the fight itself, again, Parisian is minus 215 and Porter's plus 180. Now let's move on to the next fight. It's the co-main. We have light heavyweight Anthony Smith versus Devin Clark. Via Bet Online, Anthony Smith is minus 141 and Devin Clark is plus 121. Dave, I'm going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
Yeah. You know what? I'm surprised by the matchmaking. I'm surprised by the odds. I'm seeing people give a case for Devin Clark, and I don't want to sound too disrespectful here, although I probably always do. Devin Clark is just not on Anthony Smith's level in terms of technical ability. They're two worlds apart. What is Devin Clark going to do? Come out and hold Anthony Smith up the cage for 15 minutes and give him some knees to the thigh and a few, cheeky punches to the ribs? I just don't see that happening. That's all Devin Clark has got. Just look at their records, for Christ's sake. We've got Smith coming off, fighting Teixeira, Gustafsson, John Jones, Uzdemir, Rakic. And then we look at Devin Clark and he's for who, and who. Like no one. Menifield, Townsend, Ryan Spann. He's fought Rakic himself, but got absolutely obliterated in the first round. So, This is easy for me. I don't even really have to go too deep into this one. Anthony Smith is going to win this fight. There's only one thing stopping Anthony Smith from winning this fight, and that's himself. If he gets in his own head again, which he has been a bit weird of recent, but also look at the level of competition he's been facing. This is the biggest step down in competition I have seen in a long, long time. And age 32, I don't think Devin Clark's going to come out here and show us his new jiu-jitsu skills or, a brand new spinning back kick that he's got. I think he's on a 2-fight win streak now. He's 6-4 in the UFC. All 6 of them fights he's won by decision. This matchup here, we've got a fighter versus an athlete. And Devin Clark is athletic, he's big, he's strong. Anthony Smith is a fighter, and he has the tools to do what he wants. He can do what he wants in this fight, really. We saw Devin Clark be choked out on the feet from a rear naked choke. We saw Devin Clark losing some awful predicaments that high-level fighters just don't get themselves into them situations. And for as rough as Anthony Smith has been fighting recently, I just, the number 7 ranked here is now fighting an unranked Devin Clark. And the odds are a gift, in my opinion. It's Anthony Smith straight up. And you know what? We've got 25 minutes. He's getting this done in... Have we got... Is it a 25 minutes?
It's a 15-minute fight. It's the call.
15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. Maybe it does go to the decision, actually. But it's Anthony Smith, and we don't need to take a prop anyway. We've got Anthony Smith sat here at minus 130 at Bet Online. That's a gift. That's a true gift, in my opinion. Size advantage, skill advantage, experience advantage. Advantages all favour Anthony Smith, besides the fact that he's been looking rough since he lost to the Burglar. Now, this the only bad losses took to the home invasion that he suffered, and his house was robbed. Since then, that's his only bad loss, in my opinion. The Burglar beat Anthony Smith the most. With this one, this is Devin Clark. He's gonna punch him. He's gonna punch him up. It's all Anthony Smith, in my opinion. Book it.
All right, well, how about you, Matt? Do you agree with Dave, or do you have a different take for the co-main?
Oh, this fight is terrible for all the reasons that Dave listed and more. Now that minus 130, I'm correct, and that's the line on Smith is minus 130. That is because we don't know what Anthony Smith is showing up to the Octagon on Saturday night. We don't know which one's going to step inside the UFC Apex. Is it the one that had all of that bravado and all that braggadocio before the fight with John Jones? Is it the guy that beat Shogun, Rashad Evans, Volkan Ozdemir, and, went up against Alexander Gustafsson? Like, is it that guy, or is it the guy that lost to Rakic and got dropped by Glover Teixeira? Which one is it? Which Anthony Smith are we going to see? Are we going to see the poised, prideful fighter, the smart fighter that will see all of the traps laid out in front of him? Because this is another trap fight. If Clark can just get inside his head, if he can see one vulnerability of Smith, and that's not an indictment on Anthony Smith as a person, it's more of when you look at his behavior over the last couple of fights, we've seen a fighter that is that is confident enough in himself, but may not be able to exude that confidence inside the cage. There may be something there blocking that, which has manifested. I think that loss to John Jones impacted him more than he's letting on, and we've seen that. We've seen how he's felt about that loss, and it's affected him greatly. No slight on Anthony Smith. I couldn't imagine going through all of that. I couldn't imagine taking a loss of that magnitude. I couldn't imagine getting yourself to that point and failing. It's something I've done times personally and professionally. It's why I'm single, yelling into a ring light. But it's more of what happens next for Anthony Smith. And I think this fight's going to answer that question. If he's able to dust up Devin Clark, which is what I probably think will happen, what Dave thinks will happen, probably what Lee thinks will happen. It's what everybody in the chat's probably thinking. But there's a lot going on in the world, and how Anthony Smith reacts to that and reacts to all this. And also, he's probably pissed off that he had to take this fight with Clark. Like, if you're a former title challenger and you've fought the guys that we've listed Anthony Smith has fought and beat, now he's going up against a guy who defeated Alonzo Menifield and Daquan Townsend, but needed 15 minutes to do it. I feel like Anthony Smith is going to come out hyper-aggressive early, and that can either result in a quick win for him or a long night for him. I'm very apprehensive. The line's too good for me not to take it. If I was throwing something down, I would take Smith. I would probably put a couple of pension dollars in there, but this fight scares the hell out of me.
So I'm looking at bestfightodds.com, and I was very curious about what the odds were across the board, and it's up there. I would say the lowest odds or best odds would be at Pinnacle at minus 132, and the highest right now is minus 145 at Bovada. So, but again, via BetOnline, it's changing. So people are getting on more on Anthony Smith. So minus 141, Anthony Smith, Devin Clark plus 113. I've had Anthony Smith down since 2 days ago. So fingers crossed. But let's move on to the main event. And I feel like this is everyone knows who they're going to go with for this. Heavyweight Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis. Curtis Blaydes is minus 370 at BetOnline, and Derrick Lewis is plus 305. And I'm just going to check out on Best Fight Odds. Bookmaker has Curtis Blaydes at minus 400. So it's just getting higher. So, Matt, I'm going to go with you if you can give us your breakdown and pick for the main event.
I want Derrick Lewis to win this fight so bad. I want the entire UFC. The UFC heavyweight division is already just a nightmare scenario for anybody. We don't know what's happening now. John Jones is on his way in. Ngannou, Stipe Miocic is avoiding that smoke like a sumbitch. And, he says he's beaten Ngannou before. This is a different Francis Ngannou. And if I'm Curtis Blaydes, I see that opportunity. And then I see Derrick Lewis, who defies all expectations. Every single time he's in the octagon, he defies expectations. We remember his run from 2 years ago, the My Balls Was Hot run, which best best MMA run of the past 5 years, in my opinion, in terms of just creating a star and maintaining that aura. He's a guy you want to fight. It's like watching Bob Sapp in his Pride run. You know the fight is either going to be beautifully violent or a plotting nightmare. And we saw that in the Ngannou fight. It was the worst modern UFC heavyweight fight. And that is a long-running list of fights that we don't want to ever talk about again. Curtis Blaydes, beat Alexander Volkov in June. His last loss was against Francis Ngannou, a guy that Derrick Lewis beat, but it wasn't the Francis Ngannou we see now. Obviously, Curtis Blaydes is going to win the fight. But if I was going to put some money on this fight, I would probably put it on Derrick Lewis because that line is too good and Derrick Lewis is too unpredictable. I want to see him knock somebody out. And it might happen. And that excites me.
All right. Interesting. Well, how about you, Dave? Do you agree with Matt or do you have a different take on the main event?
No, I definitely agree. We all love Derrick Lewis. How can you not? Grab your ice packs because there's going to be some hot balls this weekend. And see, listen, the problem with this is Derrick Lewis is fighting the exact type of fighter that is going to cause him problems. An elite wrestler who is going to spam him with takedowns. Do you know what? Curtis Blaydes will come out. He might throw a few jabs and a few hooks, but that will be nothing more than a disguise to prepare himself to shoot. As soon as Derrick Lewis throws his first heavy bomb, we're going to watch Curtis Blaydes, whoop, and he's gonna grab him. He's gonna get a body lock, and he's gonna trip him. He's gonna control the top half of his body and trip him instantly. Go straight into half guard. He's gonna throw elbows. He's gonna throw punches. He's gonna ground and pound him. And Derrick Lewis fans are gonna be upset because Derrick Lewis is gonna be on the canvas, TKO'd, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. It's not a good fight for Lewis. Now, we can look at Curtis Blaydes and say, yeah, okay, his kryptonite is the knockout power. Who are the two heaviest hitters in the UFC? Francis Ngannou and Derrick Lewis. Who has Curtis Blaydes lost to? Francis Ngannou, but it doesn't quite work as easy as that. Derrick Lewis is very slow. And he has been losing weight, and he does look better each fight. I will give him that. He's starting to look less like, the fat, overweight Derrick Lewis, and more like the athletic, scary, stay the hell away from me Derrick Lewis. But even with that said, Curtis Blaydes is just too much. And if you read the articles at SBI, you'll already know that I think there's great value in Curtis Blaydes to win this inside the distance. And as funny as this sounds, the longer this fight goes, I believe it favors Derrick Lewis. Because as good as Curtis Blaydes is, and a lot of wrestlers have great cardio, at this heavyweight division, chain wrestling for a long amount of time is so detrimental to your cardio in that fight that, I mean, we watched what happened with Volkov. Lewis was dominated the entire fight. It was over. We all knew the judges' scorecards. People with their tickets with Volkov were lifting it up because they knew what the result was going to be. And then boom, he's got that knockout power. It doesn't matter how tired he is or how energetic he is, whether it's the first minute or the last minute. This is the problem with both Derrick Lewis and Francis Ngannou. That knockout power is a threat constantly, and that's the only thing that's worrying me. And to be fair, that's the only thing that worries anyone. Blaydes is an incredible wrestler. Like he's up there with the best, with the DCs and the Khabibs. He's even got a similar style to them. He's gonna, even if he can't get you down, or even if you're managing to get back to your feet, he's just gonna put all of his body weight on you. He's gonna lean on you. He's gonna tie you down. He's gonna drain the life out of Lewis, but he's also gonna drain it out of himself. And as I just mentioned, Lewis doesn't lose that knockout power. So it is a worry to just be like, okay, I'm going to bet Blaydes. And that's why I think taking Blaydes inside the distance, at least you're going to get some value. And you're not going to be hurt when you've took a 80% probability and Lewis finishes your man with 5 seconds to go. Do you know what I mean? It's them type of situations that we want to avoid. And it's only really, heavyweight division that it happens, light heavyweight division. Mm-hmm. How is Blaydes going to win this? I'd say he's going to use his wrestling, take him down, beat him. How can Lewis win? Lewis has got that knockout power. Is he going to pull it off? We just don't know. And it's not something that you can predict. It's just not something that you can predict. But I can tell you what I think's going to happen. I think Blaydes is going to come out, grapple him, and finish him. Because he has to. Like, he can't hang around with Derrick Lewis. He doesn't want to stay in there wrestling Derrick Lewis for 25 minutes. Because, the rounds come to an end and you have to stand up again. I'm not giving Derrick Lewis 5 chances to hit me. Sorry, there's 5 rounds. That's 5 times that even if Blaydes can take him to the ground, he's got a chance to get back up, and then the end of the round comes, they're stood up. So no, thank you. I'm not willing to take that risk, but I do believe Curtis Blaydes will get this one inside the distance. And because it is Derrick Lewis and he is such a tough dude, you can get some great value on that. I think it's minus 120 right now if you're interested in Blaydes to win inside the distance.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, if you guys do want to get on the main event, again, via BetOnline, Blaydes is minus 370 and Lewis is plus 305. Now, before I wrap everything up, I just have a question for the both of you guys, and I'll start off with Dave. Since this card was so weird, what would be your most valued fight for this weekend?
See, that's a tough one. I think it's not going to be a side this week. I think the most valuable play is the under in the Parisian fight, the Parisian Porter fight. I think the under, whether it be 1.5 or 2.5, I think that's going to hit this week, and I think that's where you're getting some value. Oh no, forget what I'm lying. Anthony Smith, I've already said it. Sorry, Anthony Smith minus 130. And do you know what I didn't mention? Matt says, everyone probably agrees with us, but I don't think they do, because the line is going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, it is.
Anthony Smith opened at minus 160, okay? And he's now sitting at minus 130 at some books. So, that's value for me. Anthony Smith, the better fighter, all-round martial artist, and his line's moving in the wrong way. And this is just because of his recent performances. And, I'm going to take a chance. It's Devin Clark. It could be a lot of other fighters. If it was a top 10 fighter, I might not be, too quick to pull the button, but it's Devin Clark. Go watch Devin Clark's fight. The best highlight I can get from Devin Clark is probably when he dropped Alexander Rakic, but Rakic got up and then knocked him out. So Anthony Smith is my best bet for this week, guys. My favorite pick, should I say.
Great. Well, how about you, Matt? What would be your favorite or most valued pick for this weekend?
Oh, it's got to be Anthony Smith. Like, I was looking at the Ostovich-Mazany fight, trying to see if there was anything there. That fight is a pick'em disaster. I'm walking away from that fight, never talking about it again. That fight's on the card. That's all I'm gonna say about that fight. But yeah, minus 130 for Anthony Smith in a co-main event when he's fought in the main event of a pay-per-view before is just, it's confounding to me. But take the money and run, as that band from the 1970s said, and I'm really disappointed that I can't remember the name of that band. So I'm going to go yell at myself as soon as we're off the air and Google it. But for me, I'm most thankful for Anthony Smith being at minus 130 if I'm looking to put any Skrilla on this, and me saying Skrilla is very disgusting.
Well, there you have it. And that's all I have for this week's main card breakdown for UFC Fight Night. Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis, back at the UFC Apex. Now, if you guys are not following Dave and Matt on Twitter, because they will update their feed with what they're betting on for the weekend, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Dave at @DManion_, and you can follow Matt at MRyan Consulting. And obviously, give SBR a follow on Twitter as well at SBR Sports Picks. And of course, if you want more breakdowns and picks from all of SBR's UFC experts, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC or just click the link in the description below. And also check out Matt's stuff at MMA Mania. You won't be sorry. All right.
I'll be calling the Tyson Jones fight this weekend. So if you want to see me root for Nate Robinson to knock out a Paul brother, you may want to watch us on YouTube this Saturday night.
Definitely join him. Great. I'm definitely will be there, so I'll see you then, Matt. But again, best of luck to you all this weekend, and I'll see you next week.